After many years of being apart after graduating high school, four high school buddies came together at a local coffee shop to talk about, what's been happening in their lives, their success, and ultimately to brag about their wealth. So naturally, after a while, the bragging began, and the first friend said, I've accumulated enough wealth that you see that restaurant across the street over there? Well, I'm getting ready to buy that restaurant. So the second friend, not to be outdone, chimed in and he said, yes, well, I've accumulated a decent amount of wealth and I've had good success also. And so you see the fitness center on the corner there? Well, I'm getting ready to buy that gym. Well, the third friend then chimed in right on top of the others and he said, well, that's great that you're getting a restaurant and a gym, but this coffee shop that we're sitting in right here, I'm getting ready to buy this coffee shop. So all three friends then turned to the fourth friend who's sitting back and has been quiet the entire time, and they're waiting for him to chime in and talk about his success and what he's accomplished. And very calmly and very quietly, he took a drink of his coffee, grinned, and slowly said, I'm not selling. Success can be tricky. Now, being too successful for too long can lead to idiotic levels of optimism and even some magical thinking, expecting things to continue going great. Don't let your winning streak be the reason for your downfall. Success has many hidden dangers to watch out for. But here's a list of 4 that are particularly tricky. As I discuss these, I encourage you to take a mental inventory of yourself and maybe of your business to see if any of these apply to you. And if they do, the time to act is now. The first issue is a failure to innovate. Let me read you a quote. Now, this is from former Intel CEO Andy Grove, and he wrote this in his book, Only the Paranoid Survive. He says, once an organization reckons it has succeeded and has everything necessary to continue achieving success without making any systematic changes, then it's doomed to decay and eventual collapse. Consider the following brands. I just want you to think about these brands, how successful they've been and where they are now. America Online, BlackBerry, Blockbuster Video, Kodak cameras. Each of these were industries or companies rather, that were at their prime. But as things begin to change, for example, Kodak once had the concept and the designs for a digital camera. And although they could have released that, they said, no, this is never going to catch on. This is not a big deal. Well, guess what? Someone else ran with that idea, and Kodak was devastated as a result. So innovation is critically important. Maybe you've done something that is very creative or very cutting edge, and that has led to you having significant success. Don't assume that that's just going to continue to be the case. The winds of change are always blowing, and with free enterprise, someone is going to improve upon even your idea. They're going to improve upon your design. They're going to make a better version of your product. So you can't just sit back and assume that everything's going to be great. You constantly have to be innovating. Add to it, make it better, improve it in some way, create a new offer, a new special, a new feature. These things are very important, not only as selling points, but to remain competitive. If you can't innovate, if you're so successful you think I've got this on lock, then you're doomed to eventual decay. The second issue is minimization. Okay, this is what you might call filter thinking. So the way this works is companies will tend to, when they've been very successful for a while, or professionals when they've been very successful for a while, they will enlarge good news. When there's something good about their career, about their profession, about themselves, they'll say, "Yep, okay, of course, yeah, this is we're crushing it. We're doing a fantastic job." Same with businesses and companies. But then at the same time, they will ignore failure or bad omens. It's like, I'm just going to focus on the good stuff that's going on. I'm not going to pay attention to the bad. I'm not going to pay attention to what my competitor's doing over here. I'm not going to pay attention to the fact that, our sales figures are dropping, or that I'm not getting a lot of interest in job offers, that my career isn't expanding. That sets you up for, again, a situation where you potentially could have a downfall. The importance here is realistic thinking. You want to be able to celebrate the good news, celebrate the good times, the successes. That's definitely important. But at the same time, take those with a grain of salt or thought. Actually, that was a slip of the tongue, but it works pretty well. Think about those things that are happening and what could potentially go wrong. And don't ignore the warning signs, the red flags, because they could point you in a direction of the need for innovation, or the need of change, or the need of further professional development. Those things are critical. The third thing that can be kind of a tricky situation or a trap of success is the avoiding risk. Being risk aversive. Now, it's extremely natural, and this is just a psychological principle, that everybody and everything tends to become more risk averse with age and success, right? So the more that we are successful, or the older that we get, the more that we've established, the more we want to avoid risk, because that could overturn the apple wagon. We want to make sure that things keep rolling along, that things keep going well. We don't want to do anything that could potentially derail the success that we've had. But when you have too much to lose, anything with a potential downside leads to a focus on fear rather than a focus on facts. And so this kind of speaks to that realistic thinking, but part of the realistic thinking is still being willing to take risks. Now, ultimately, whatever it was that you did, you're starting your venture, starting your career, your profession, contained an element of risk. Maybe that risk was, I'm going to go to school. There's a risk of failure. There's a risk that, maybe I'll wash out. I don't have what it takes to get this degree. With starting a business, there's lots of risks that are involved. Maybe we aren't sustainable. Maybe we have to close our doors. We're not successful. We're not able to keep the momentum going. So there is an element of risk that was in the very beginning that got you to where you are now. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go out and be extreme risk takers and do dangerous things. That's nonsense. But you do need to recognize that there are certain points when you have to take risks. If you hadn't braved it, you wouldn't be where you are now. And if you cease to act upon situations that contain an element of risk, well, you'll ensure failure by being conquered by those who do take risks. You've got to keep doing what you started. When I was younger and I was dating, my dad gave me a word of caution that's always kind of stuck with me. He said, whatever you started doing, you have to keep doing, right? And at first that kind of puzzled me, and then he explained. He said, well, you're writing these beautiful love poems, and you're showing up on the date with a rose. Well, that's great, but that's going to be expected now, so you need to continue doing those things. Well, the same is true of your business. Those things that put you in a position to be successful where you are now, even the risk that you took, have to continue. So taking chances is a necessary part of being successful and continuing to be successful. If it's a calculated risk, not a foolish one. A fruit farmer once said, I owe my success to my dear old pop. Every time I felt scared as a kid, he would tell me to grow a pear. That's what it takes. The fourth issue that can be a problem with success, or a danger that comes with success, is inflexibility. This is particularly true when you've kind of gotten past the startup stage. Now, in a business perspective, this would be when the company is established, when you have clear systems, clear organizations, or maybe you've grown to a point where there's levels of management and levels of quote unquote bureaucracy that is involved with your processes and your systems. And those things are important. You need to have a level of organization. But when those become so entrenched that you're inflexible, well, then you begin to quash innovation, and it leads to a problem. The same is true of you in your professional life. When you first started as a professional, everything was new and exciting. You know, you're in your field, you were learning, you were growing, you were trying new things. And at some point we kind of settle in, and that might be resting on your laurels, or that might be, you know, I've always done it this way. Yeah, I know the industry's changing and my field's changing, but I'm not going to do that. That's these fringe people out here on the sides. I'm just going to keep doing what I've always done. That inflexibility is problematic, particularly when it's inflexibility for the sake of keeping order and not productivity, because the ultimate goal should be productivity. Keeping the status quo at any cost will eventually cost you in the end. So you must maintain adaptability. It's very important in your professional career and a business or as a company that you maintain the ability to be nimble. You need to be able to pivot. You need to be able to change direction. Again, I'm not advocating chaos or that you don't have a structure or you don't have an organization or a process. Those things are important. But you need to be able to say, yes, this is how we've always done it, but now we're going to do it different because this is what needs to happen. The playing field has changed. So you have to stay nimble. So to be truly successful, remember to guard against these dangers. If not for yourself, then do it for your family. For you see, success is relative. The more success you have, the more relatives. Until next time, don't just be transformed, be kinged.